Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I'm Dylan Grausz. Alongside me, as always, we got Chris Jackson. And this week's show on this rainy day, I'm in Tucson. It's raining out. It's a thunderous day, but it does not mean that we're not going to have a sunny fire show for you guys today. This week's show, we're going to be doing mid-season MVP stat guys who are playing well in each league. We're going to, in today's show, we're going to focus on the Marin League and the Diablo Foothill League. There's a lot of players that have been playing really well up until this point. Chris, let's start with Sam Marin. What players stand out to you, and who would you say are the MVPs so far up to this point in the season?
Yeah, Marin County's got a lot of great teams this year. Again, last year they had a couple of state champions. It was kind of crazy. Last year, you had Marin Catholic win a state title in the afternoon, the first ever team from that county to win state. And 4 or 5 hours later, San Marin does the same thing. So I guess it was that younger brother, older brother, twin brother type thing where you just get it first. But yeah, I love the MCAL. I've always kind of advocated for them. I think they should get more recognition of what they've got so far. Marin Catholic right now 5-0. Not really surprised by that after winning state. The guys they've got, Charles Williams is an obvious athlete of the year kind of candidate at running back. He's got a few offers.
Yep.
I love to see his speed. He's got to hit 21 miles per hour, I guess, in a game easily would just be my guess. He's only a junior. He's good. They got a great quarterback situation. Their defense is really strong. Will Clemens is one of the best players on defense across the Bay Area. And Marin Catholic's pretty much just a well-oiled machine. They're the top dog until somebody in that league actually beats them. And it hasn't happened yet in a long time, so we'll see if somebody actually can do that.
Would you say that there's any teams that you say are a threat to Marin Catholic, or would you say that they're probably the team that's still going to take it this year? Because I've seen some good game. I mean, I've heard and seen some good, some good games out there so far going on. But I mean, I don't know what's your take on it.
San Marin's inching its way closer. I know their youth football program at San Marin's really grown to hundreds of kids. They've had things out where there's too many kids showing up for football, which is kind of a rare thing to hear about nowadays anywhere. They were close to Marin Catholic last year, had a 14-0 lead, lost that lead, lost by a score. JV lost by 3. I think that was the JV team's only loss. And San Marin lost a lot of seniors from last year. They had to get leadership, so never going to their practice. They're like early on, we might kind of be slow out of the gates, but we'll find our groove once league play hits the second half of the year. So San Marin's probably the biggest threat. And this year, Marin Catholic's got to go to San Marin. And now San Marin's got lights, which means now a Friday night game at San Marin, they're going to have a lot of people from the city of Nevada at that game. I think San Marin's probably the best threat. They've gotten closer and closer, losing less kids than Marin Catholic. I don't know what the exact number was, but I think in this incoming freshman class, they may have lost one kid to Marin Catholic total, and their quarterback from last year moved to Marin Catholic this year. But San Marin loves its quarterback too. Dominic Ingrasia's got 775 yards, 8 touchdowns. He's got a strong arm. He's going to play college football like his brother, who's now at UC Davis. I think San Marin's that team. They got a good running back. They got some great receivers. Frankie Quincy's a stud. Wesley Timmel's a young sophomore, and I think it's his second year of football, and he's already one of the leading receivers out there. I like their defense. Jake Pierce is a beast. Their line play is good. Frankie Patuya is a strong lineman up front. I think San Marin's probably the best threat to Marin Catholic right now, and they were the best threat to them last year. I don't see that changing this year.
Yeah.
I think probably the same 2 teams at the top, but it's a really strong league top to bottom, but I still think it's Marin Catholic along San Marin too right there.
One thing that really is intriguing to me, and looking at all the stats here, one team that's surprising, and this is a team that hasn't been great in its past in this league, but Redwood is a school to watch out for. They're 2-2. They're not great, but they're holding on, and they have a good quarterback in Brady Winegard. He's a good player, great quarterback, good arm, and I think they have a shot not to win the league this season, but I think they have a shot to make a good run at NCS. I think they have a chance to be a good team down the line. And I think if their quarterback play stays the way it's been, then I think they're going to be a good team. And I think that they're, offensively, that they're a pretty good team in that league. So
Yeah, and Brady Winegard, I'm glad you mentioned that quarterback. He's somebody everybody's kind of told me and agreed with. He's a Division I quarterback. He's got high grades too, a really high GPA. There's no reason why he shouldn't at least go play in the Patriot League with those high academic FCS schools or the Ivy League with his talent. And yeah, they're 2-2, but those losses also Akalani's, Rancho Cotati,
They're
they're
good
definitely
teams.
they've challenged themselves, right? And that's all you can ask for. That's going to benefit you down the road. They should be good. I like where Redwood's going. You've got Brady Winegard. Miles Grossman's good. Sam Janowski's been a good player. You've also got Colin McGrath has really stepped up. They've got a lot of pieces. They're well coached as well. I think
Yep.
Redwood's going to make some noise. And Tamalpais is another team too. You see it up and down the line. They've got a junior quarterback, Braden Young, his third every year of football, and you could kind of scratch that first year because that was COVID in a short season and just
He
weird
got
times.
9 interceptions, but like you said, he's young and he's still making some, he's airing the ball out at least, so which is good.
Yeah, and look at
Got a
their
lot of yards, which proves he has a good arm and he's throwing the ball deep downfield. He's getting it out there at
yeah,
least.
yeah. It's like I just said too. Just look at their schedule. They played McClymonds, they played Reardon, they played Windsor, teams with a lot more and bigger football players. And just programs that have kind of established themselves for a long time, especially McClymonds. I love what Tamalpais has. Matthew Lamone's built that program up to not getting a whole lot of fans at games. So now you always see those stands are overflowed. They have fans in the end zone there. Always a good atmosphere on Saturdays. But Braden Young's another guy who's definitely going to play Division I football somewhere. Again, if I'm an Ivy League school too, I'm reaching out to Braden Young yesterday because of his grades are really high. I know his Ivy League's been big in his family. They're 1-3, but again, those losses, they got a big game this week. It looks like they'll be the winner of the game of the week voting. He's got 1,000 yards, and yeah, those 9 picks. But again, the competition size of guys they're going against, that's tough. He's breaking in the new receiving core this year, new tight end, top receivers who are doing really well. We'll get into that, but
Yeah.
Brady Winegard too. He stepped up, wasn't the starter early on. Redwood game leads a comeback, finished with 21 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Still new to football, a great arm, great mechanics. He's going to be good. And then, yeah, just get into it. You've got, right, Will Bass-Knight's been a really great player, 352
Yeah.
receiving yards, over 19 yards a catch. Andrew Gordon's one of the leading receivers.
Harry Pocock on San Rafael is a good player too. I'm looking at. He's a two-way player, but he's got 4 INTs in 4 games played, and he's playing really well on both sides of the ball. And I think, especially nowadays, when you have the recruiting, stuff, and you can play 2 sides of the ball, it's important because then it gives coaches the ability to like figure out what they really want to do with you. And I think it gives players the opportunity to get more offers if they're able to be good on both sides of the ball. So I think that helps a lot too. And, I think also the fact that you see Bodie Shipley with 2 sacks in 2 games, like, I mean, that's
Hey,
insane. He's getting to the quarterback really, really well, and that to me is that's incredible.
yeah,
2 sacks in 2 games. He's on pace for what, 12 sacks and what, or 10 sacks in 10
yeah,
games?
right. Yeah, you're getting a sack.
Incredible.
You can't ask for more than that as a defensive coordinator, position coach, whatever it is. And the thing you got to love about Marin County now is they've just got pretty much great head coaches at every school. They're building those programs up. It's always been tough when you've had kind of the one giant Marin Catholic there for a while. I know sometimes kids want to cross the bridge to play some of the schools in San Francisco, but you've got these great coaches building programs. San Rafael's another team, played a tough schedule, almost beat Tamalpais, and they've got a new head coach who was the Tamalpais assistant last year. He's got some good stuff going. Casey Soley, I think he's building a great thing at San Rafael. Charlie Grant's a good quarterback. They put up some big days, some big games together. All those guys that you just mentioned. I think that league up and down. And Archie Williams also too has. I know Coach Jackson's really built things up there. They won 7 games last year when he took over. They barely had 40 kids across all the levels. Now I think they have 40 kids on varsity alone. That's big growth right there. You're getting people that want to come out. Nate Carpe Brody, he had 200 yards on like 10 carries in the opener against Salesian. He had a maybe 50% healthy ankle in that game too. And he hit 21 miles an hour in one of those catapult tracking vests. The kid's a monster. He should play football somewhere too. It's all these teams have somebody. They're well coached. They're getting those cultures back. You're getting great student support. I think Marin County is one of those underrated leagues. I know it's harder for some people to get to, but it's worth the trip. It's worth going to Marin. And all those teams you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned Marin or Redwood. Tamalpais, San Marin, Sander, folks. Those are all well coached programs.
Now, speaking of some really good programs, now let's go to the Foothill League because there's some players that I want to talk about. The guy I'm going to start out with is Robbie Mascaroni. This guy's name has been thrown around the sports world in that area for a while. He's got 607 yards receiving in 5 games played. This kid is something else. I've known this kid for a while. He obviously went to school with me in elementary school when I was older. He's been an athlete his whole life. This kid has always been a good athlete. He's always been someone who, he's a good athlete. It's all around. And Campolindo is undefeated. They haven't lost a game. And a large part of that is because Dashel, the quarterback, has Robbie to throw to, and that is helping, and that's showing that is being a lethal combination. What is your take on that team and just that league as a whole?
I mean, it's Campolindo football. That's the way it's been for years with Kevin Macy. They've run those youth camps, those camps growing up, and kids want to go play for Campolindo, and why wouldn't you? That Dash Weaver stepped up in big ways, over 1,100 yards, 14 touchdowns, a dual threat guy. He had some great touchdowns in that comeback at Windsor where they won in the last second. And I love Robbie Mascaroni. He's got over 10 offers, 6'4" target. He wins every one-on-one battle. 1,200 yards last year, over 600 this year. Unbelievable. But then you've got Scott Lyon, too. He's really stepped up. He had that game-winning catch at Windsor. He's an up-and-coming player. Brendan Comerford's going to Kenyon College. And no, not the Brendan Comerford, the baseball player. Foothill committed to St. Mary's nearby. It's kind of weird how they got the same name, but
Yeah,
you got
I know
Brendan
him too.
Comerford. Yeah, you've got Brendan Comerford at Campolindo, right? Going to Kenyon College. Great football player. Really impressed me when I saw them earlier this year. They've got some great pieces on defense. You've got some good pieces. Charlie Murrin stepped up.
Robbie Horse is still there too.
Yep, Robbie Horse has played great football. Isaiah Ortiz has made some plays. That's just Campolindo football. Great assistant.
They got good teams every single year. That's the one team in the league that I never question is going to be good. And I know I'm not trying to sound like a biased former student there. I'm saying they always have I don't know how, but they always get guys that are the right pieces for that team, and they always make a run. It doesn't matter, they're smaller in terms of size, but they get it done, and that's all you ask for. And, I think it's great that they do it. I think it's great that they have a system in place, especially offensively, that knows how to tailor to high school kids. And I think that's the best part about Coach Macy. His system's not complicated. His system's simple, but it's also very effective, if that makes sense. He's got a very effective system, but it's not too hard to pick up. If you're a quarterback, the plays aren't too hard. It's not that in depth, but it's the plays are good. The plays are very good in that system.
Yeah, definitely. It's simplicity sometimes is great because you make it simple, but you also execute that at a high level. You execute well. Look at what De La Salle did for all those years. You knew what was coming. They ran maybe 5 plays out of the year. They had great players too, but of course they execute at a high rate every single play. That's what Campolindo does. Macy always adjusts well to his talent. It's a great thing too. And I know I've said it before, but I think we all need to learn to stop listening to Macy when he says the time is coming. It's going to be a down year for us. He definitely just
You
does.
know why he's saying that, don't you? He's saying that because
Exactly.
he wants everyone to be like, "Oh, Campa's gonna suck. Let's let up on him." And then he puts up 65 points on you, and then it's like, "All right, there you go."
Yeah, right. And it's also just a way to motivate the
Oh
guys.
yeah, absolutely.
It works, right? He knows
It
what
does
he's
work.
doing.
Nobody wants to let down Coach Macy. He's been there long enough now to where he's like a Bill Belichick of high school sports. No one wants to let him down. If
Right.
you're his quarterback, you have a very high honor at that school.
Yeah, you do. If Kevin Macy's a legend in coaching circles, that
Absolutely.
playing him, even if you're considered a favorite against Campolindo, you know it's going to be a tough football game because you know they're going to be well coached.
But I will say, Miramani though, Luke Duncan is putting on a show this season. I'm telling you, I'm telling you this now. In my years living in that area, I've never seen a Miramani team that actually has the capabilities of being a real threat. And I'm not saying that to bash them. I'm saying that they now have a quarterback that can take them over that hump. And I think Miramani is, especially because Luke, he's what, a junior, senior?
Mm-hmm.
He's almost done. He's going to UCLA soon. So he's their quarterback. I think he's the guy that'll take him on a run. He's been playing great. He's got 1,200 yards, only 2 INTs, 17 touchdowns in 5 games. It's in half the season. That's incredible. And I mean, I think that that's something that you don't really see it every day in high school. So, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it is. And
Right.
Miramar
Yeah.
has a great history. They just went through some down years for them.
Yeah.
The tide changing. Floyd Burnside won there. Now he's the Akalani's head coach. He was their head coach during those heydays back in the day. You think 90s football in Miramonte. They just went through some down years. Now it seems like they're picking it back up. Kids are going there and they're playing well. Luke Duncan's the perfect example. 17 touchdowns, just 2 picks for 1,200 yards, like you mentioned, a UCLA commit. There was one game they lost. It was their only loss, but Oakdale's always a strong program out of the Central Valley. Those two teams combined for 600 yards of offense in the first half of that game. I mean, Luke Duncan, he had, I think, 289 yards. I don't know, wrote about that. It was like 289 yards in that first half he threw for. Just unbelievable. Bennett Destino.
Oh yeah. Bennett Sestino's another guy too I really like. He's a good player. He's fast, athletic. He makes that offense definitely more lethal. Even Ethan Conley, he's got 4 TDs, right? So he's been helping him out too. And I think that that team finally has an offense that you can run some cool stuff with. And call me crazy, but I think Miramani, I'm not saying they're the best team in that league, obviously, but I think that if you put them in NCS, they're going to have a good time. I think it's going to be a good run. I think that they have a chance to make it close to the finals or semifinals or, we'll see.
I think all these teams are a threat in their NCS divisions. The way
Yeah,
it's
no, they are.
how Akalani's looks to be one too. They're undefeated. They've got big wins. They beat San Marin week 1 at San Marin. Is a defending state champion of its own. They looked great in that game. They've got a couple of quarterbacks that can throw the football. They've got electric receivers. Trevor Rogers, I don't know if that kid ever drops a pass. He's got a UMass offer. Paul Keener ran a 10.53, 10.56 in the 100 meters. He's a junior as well. Like Rogers has a UMass offer. His hands have gotten a lot better. He's really quick, makes big plays. That running back too, Ellis Berger, somebody I really like. He's just tough. He'll get you 5 yards every single carry. He's tough, athletic, strong, quick. He's another kid that I like to play Division I football. If he doesn't get that chance, he'll play any level of college football and be an impact player. He's just that good. I like him. And that defense too. Kyle Belowski has been a really good safety. Jack Giorgiani's been a great player. Ethan Torres had a big interception against San Marin. Trevor Rogers actually did in that game too. That sealed that game at the end of the end zone. Akalani's is another one of the teams. And yeah, Floyd Burnsett's coaching. It's another coach where Burnsett's coaching you guys. You know that you've got a chance. And as an opposing coach, okay, this is going to be tough because Burnsett's he loves that spread stuff. He loves doing that. And it's always complicated. He's always got.
Are you concerned about their defense at all, though? Their defense is fine, but their defense is probably, if you have to pick one weakness on their team compared to their offense and defense, it's probably their defense. And are you worried about their defense long term for this season?
No, I'm not, just because of the teams they've played, and you look at the schedule too. In a way, like can't like you it's just one of those things like we mentioned with Redwood and Tamalpais, right? The records don't look great, but the teams they played. I think Akalani's also scores a lot of big plays and stuff too. So that's gonna net it. That's gonna lend its way to more points on the board. Sometimes you watch that. I think we saw that with Texas against Texas Tech over the weekend. Texas can score quick, but also that lends its way to a lot of points being put up just because you score quick and all that. But I'd like to see the yards per play average. I think that would be good in Akalani's favor. I like what they've got on defense. I like what they've got in the back end. Some good corners that have really stepped up too. Good safety leadership, linebackers. Defensive line looks good too. It's another team like Campolindo where some of these star players may not be 6'5", 240, 250 pounds along that line, but they're going to be well coached. They're going to hit those gaps. They're going to twist, stunt, whatever it is, and they're going to make you plays. So, and that being
The way they coach, especially at Campo too, it's a way of it's aggression, right? It's all a matter of just having that dog in you. If you're not big, you just have to be aggressive and you just have to get in there because at the end of the day, it's technique based too. And I think what makes in a way, I think the schools that rely more on their speed than they do their size in high school are more cut out for, I think, better runs only because the way their coach is more technique based than it is, like rely on your size. Because I think technique at the end of the day, especially this level, goes a lot farther than being a 6'5", 300-pound guy who just tackles everyone all the time. Like, yeah, that helps, but it's the way you approach things, the way you go about things that I think is really what's going to help, these players really see the jump that they're going to make.
Completely agree with that. And that's what's made Foothill so good for so many years. They weren't always the biggest team, but under Salini and now Hobner, they still find different ways to get you. Technique wise, they're still fundamentally sound. And like you said, it's that dog mentality that just works really well. And I was just thinking about it now. I want to give a shout out because one of Campolindo's recent graduates, you put on Virginia Tech last Thursday night. Who's out there? You've seen them sometimes. Elijah Clark.
Elijah Clark's out there
at Virginia Tech, a legacy thing. He's now coming out to enter Sandman, doing great things. I know he was mentioned as one of their athletes of the week, not this past week, but the week prior when
knowing Elijah personally, and this is something that's a perfect example of the way they coach at Campo, right? He's a strong kid. Obviously, he's great at football, but he's not. If you look at the way the other guys are built, he's obviously not. You wouldn't look at him and think, oh, yeah, this guy's going to be an NFL superstar. But the way he plays and the dog mentality he has and the fight he plays with is actually what makes him better than a lot of guys I've seen, and is why he's at Virginia Tech, because he was lifting 200 pounds as a freshman. He was benching 200 pounds as a freshman. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, this kid's going D1 one day because he's benching 200 pounds as a freshman. And now he's at Virginia Tech playing at an ACC school, facing guys that are probably going to the NFL next year. And he's playing in front of just all these fans at Virginia Tech making plays. Like, that is exactly what college or high school sports is supposed to be all about. And that's a huge shout out to what they do over there in that league and the way they coach those kids. And that's why that league is just a great league to watch. They have heart, those guys. And that's what you need in football, heart.
It's well coached disciplined football. And Elijah Clark, I remember during COVID, during those times when the world was shut down, he was working out 3-4 times a day sometimes. Going into his senior year, he said he cut out cookies. That was his exact quote, because he just wanted to get everything right. The diet got right, technique, strength, everything was right. And look at where he is now. Virginia Tech was always his dream growing up. Both of his parents went there. Now he's playing ACC football. So he's one of those perfect examples of the size does matter sometimes, but also you
gotta work hard, and look what happens to you.
Yep, we've seen it with a lot of guys. We've seen a lot of guys that aren't that massive go to the next level and shine because they outworked everybody. And I think Elijah Clark, I know that for a fact. And he's playing at a program that's got a great history, that's got a fan base that's rabid, where you've got Enter Sandman. Any single Virginia Tech game you put it on last Thursday for the rivalry, you put on any other game before that. What do they show for 5 minutes before? Enter Sandman. And now Campolindo's own is actually one of those guys coming out for that. Like, that's pretty cool to know.
Oh, exactly. And then you also got guys like Matai playing at Fresno State. You get just these players that come from Campo. Campo's, they're a sleeper. I think not just Campo, but that league's a sleeper league in the sense where you wouldn't think about it, but you have a lot of guys that will actually end up going D1 from that league because of the way they play and the heart they have. And that, to me, is what you can never coach if you think, and well, you can, but I think that's more of a natural part of it. I think the coaching is how you know how to use it, but I think a lot of those players are born with that, and that's, I think, what's really important, especially in that league. But there's still a lot of season left. There's still a lot of games to be played, and Campo's 5-0, Marin Catholic and their league's 5-0. What teams do you think go the rest of the way undefeated, and which teams do you think sink within these next 5 games before the playoffs?
Marin Catholic's going to go unbeaten. I know I said San Marin's closing in, but I have to see it to believe it. That's kind of always been one of my things. I know sometimes I've gone against that. I shouldn't. I know I shouldn't. I'm going to stick to this. Marin Catholic right now, I think, just goes unbeaten. Same with Campolindo. I think Acalanes will make it a game. That's
really?
A game.
You think Campolindo goes unbeaten again this year?
I do.
That's bold. All right.
I don't see them losing a league game. That's a tough one to predict, though, because especially Acalanes, the guys they've got, that's going to be a match that everybody's going to want to see. I'm not sure the date on that. I'm try to just take it one week at a time in terms of games, but that's going to be one you can't miss. That's going to be the game that probably decides the league. It's hard for me to pick against Campolindo though. They've got, again, I've got to see it to believe it with them. I've got to see them actually lose and not win that title right now. It's it. Because
Now,
in 10 games last year, you win NCS and you come back and you're 5-0, finding ways. Aptos crushed you last year. You come back and beat Aptos. You beat Windsor. Marin Catholic is coming up too. You beat them. You beat San Leandro. I know I'm missing somebody off the top of my head. I'll think of it. Can't blame it though. I'm not picking against them.
now I will say this: is there any schools that you think are going to sink? Any schools that you see now that look good, or maybe aren't that look good that you're like, nah, I don't believe it. I think these guys are going to sink.
Not really. Maybe some teams have come out slower out of the gates, but I think some of their, like Las Lomas came out kind of slow out of the gates. Then I look at some of the teams they played have actually been a lot better. Like what James Logan's been really good. James Logan just beat Heritage. I think Las Lomas came out a little slower considering what it's got, but now they're getting their stride. They beat Lee. They've got some big wins. I don't know if a team's really gonna slip and slide. I just think these are two leagues where maybe past the top two spots, there's going to be a lot of teams beating up on each other. Just look at Big 12 football. Everybody's kind of even. In a lot of spots, you're going to beat up at each other because you're just that even. Coaching's good. The talent level is about the same, right? Kansas State lost to Tulane, and then they come out the next week and beat Oklahoma. I think that's kind of the way Diablo Athletic League and the Foothill side is, and also the Marin County Athletic League is, just in terms of, heck, Redwood and Tamalpais, or even Archie Williams is right there. San Rafael's right there. San Marin's good. Marin Catholic's good. Redwood's good. Then this league, right? Campolindo, Acalanes, Miramonte, Las Lomas. Benicia, unfortunately, had a really bad injury with the quarterback breaking his leg. I heard he's in good spirits. I hope everything's okay.
That's never good to hear. That's shout out to him. I hope he's doing good. You never like to hear about a season being, and if his season's over, I hope not. But you never let I never like hearing about injuries. Obviously, these kids work so hard to get to this point, and nothing sucks more than doing your job and getting hurt. So shout out to them, and hope that team is in high spirits and their quarterback it's good. But yeah, there's a lot of season left, but next show will be even better. So don't go away. We will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for coming on this great Wednesday afternoon, and have a good one, everybody.